on the moon.
Hello everyone, this video is going to be pretty different from my previous videos. For this video will be an informational one. Today we will be discussing how many buckets it takes to sink each ship. There's a lot that goes into these sort of things, and I'll be teaching you everything there is to know about sinking ships with buckets. We'll be discussing all of the types of buckets and the differences in volume between them. So sit back and enjoy, and please leave a like and comment if you enjoy this sort of thing. I might be making more in the future, so I would really appreciate your feedback. Now, if I miss anything, please let me know in the comments. Now, as you probably know, there are different volumes of water in the three different types of buckets, with the biggest being the ship bucket. Ship buckets are the scoops of water that you get when bailing the water out of your ship. This type of bucket has the most water out of all three. For gameplay balance, the ship bucket scoops the most water to make gameplay a bit easier for those who are trying to bail out the water in their ship. And to accommodate for how much water is scooped out of the ship with the ship buckets, ocean buckets are a lot smaller than ship buckets. Ocean buckets are when you're scooping water while you're in the ocean. Ocean buckets have a much smaller volume of water than ship buckets do. Each ship has a water barrel, a blue barrel that requires pumping action to refill the water after each use. Shockingly enough, barrel buckets from the water barrel are much smaller than even ocean buckets. And any tactic to try to sink a ship from inside the ship is rendered useless with how small these buckets are. Many have tried to use buckets to sink an enemy ship during an active battle, but this strategy is not one you should try when an enemy is actively fighting back, since this method of sinking takes time. Buckets tend to be either a last resort or a delightfully humorous sinking. This method is much faster when you have friends to help out with. So if you're on a galleon with friends and you find someone trying to do a gold hoarder vault, try to sneak up to them, and instead of firing your cannons, use your buckets to sink them and they'll never know you're there. Now, if you're newer to this game, it's important to understand how exactly a bucket works. When your ship is filling up with water, the bucket is your tool to use to bail the water out. So if your ship is being flooded with water and you're trying to repair those holes, make sure that the water is at a low enough level so the ship doesn't sink while you're busy repairing. Now, buckets work a little differently than you might expect. When you bail out the water, the bucket scoops way more water than you'd think possible. Also, you don't have to get into each nook and cranny to get the remaining bits of water in the ship. As long as you're on the level of the water that's in your ship, when you scoop, the water will be picked up. As you can see, with the scoop of the bucket, the hull empties. When it comes to bucketing water onto a ship, it does not matter where exactly you throw the water onto. It is the exact same in every spot. However, it is important to point out that the hatches, the windows on the sides of the sloop, actually can't have water get thrown into them, as if the hatches are always closed with an invisible barrier. Fun little fact. Now, this is what water looks like when you scoop it from the ocean and pour it into your own ship. As you can see, the water is sloshing around in the lower deck. Now, this is what it would look like for a barrel bucket to be thrown onto your ship. As you can see, there is much less water, further proving that barrel buckets are much smaller than ocean buckets. For ocean buckets, it would take 13 scoops from the ocean's water to be thrown into the ship to be equal to one ship bucket. When I've thrown 13 ocean buckets into the ship, I can scoop it all up into one ship bucket. However, if I were to add one more ocean bucket, you would see there's a little bit of water left, still sloshing around showing that 13 ocean buckets is perfectly equal to 1 ship bucket. Now, I will be showing you exactly how many ocean buckets it would take to sink a sloop. Now, if you were by yourself, it would take exactly 67 ocean buckets to sink a sloop. You may wonder if the results ever vary when trying to sink a ship with ocean buckets. However, I've tested this many times, and it is always exactly 67 ocean buckets to sink a sloop. Now, if it takes 67 ocean buckets to sink a sloop, that would mean it would take just over 5 ship buckets to sink a sloop. But that also means if a sloop were almost sunk, it would take only 5 scoops to empty the hull if there's no more water coming in. Knowing this means that if you're taking in a lot of water and you are docked next to another ship, it would only take 5 full ship buckets thrown onto the enemy ship to sink them. Now, let's move on to the Brigantine. Now, you may be curious, what if the ocean bucket to ship bucket ratio is different depending on the ships? I thought that as well. However, with further testing, I have concluded that that is not the case, and that it is the same on every ship. Now, without further ado, let's sink this Brigantine. For the Brigantine, it would take 96 ocean buckets to sink. Since it takes 96 ocean buckets to sink a Brigantine, that would mean it would only take a little over 7 ship buckets to sink it, or to completely rid it of water. Like I said with the sloop, if you were docked next to a Brigantine and your ship was filling with water, and you happened to throw 7 full ship buckets of water onto their ship, that would be all it took to sink them. Now for the Galleon, this behemoth, it takes a whopping 123 ocean buckets to sink a Galleon. Now, if you ever find a Galleon unattended long enough to sink with ocean buckets, now that would be a tale worthy for the tavern. If you were to sink a Galleon with ocean buckets alone, it would be best to bring friends with you for how long it would take. With the Galleon taking 123 ocean buckets to sink, that means it would only take 9.5 ship buckets to sink. But remember, these ship buckets have to be full. Now, for the barrel buckets, I have taken the painful task of measuring how many barrel buckets were to fit in a single ship bucket. According to my efforts, it takes a whopping 66 barrel buckets to be equal to 1 ship bucket. Now, with how drastic of a difference that is compared to ocean buckets with ship buckets, it makes barrel bucket sinking much less reliable than ocean buckets. In this video, I'm also going to be showing you what each ship looks like when it is almost sunk. When I say almost, I mean 1 ocean bucket away from sinking. Starting with the sloop. With the sloop, as you can see, the water is almost reaching the rim of the ship, and all but the very top of the middle stairs is submerged under this water. The entire map is submerged. The entire quest table is submerged. However, these barrels by the shelf are merely millimeters away from being fully submerged. But with this final bucket, they become submerged, allowing the ship to sink. Now you can judge these barrels as meters to show how close your ship is sinking. But as you can see, with one final ocean bucket, the sloop sinks. With the Brigantine almost sunk, you can see the water level gets quite high. When you get to the stairs, you can see the plank by the mast is almost fully submerged, and with water seeping to the top of the deck, sloshing around by the left cannons, causing the Brigantine to tilt to the left slightly, which is something you'll see again with the Galleon. As you can see, the full ship is quite submerged. No matter where you go, you will find no air. But with one final bucket, it sinks. So that is what a Brigantine looks like when it is one ocean bucket away. With the Galleon, however, when the ship is just an ocean bucket away from sinking, it seems a lot less submerged than the other two, with the water level not being as high as the other ships when we're just an ocean bucket away from sinking. Another fun fact with the Galleon, when it's very close to sinking, it leans pretty heavily to the left, as you can see here. Just as I have showed you with the other ships, this is what a Galleon looks like when it is just but one ocean bucket away from sinking. When the Galleon is on the brink of sinking, you can still see that the plank below the top plank on the stair is not fully submerged. So do be wary. The Galleon sinks much quicker than you would expect it to. Alright everybody, that's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.